Hey, it's Coach Taylor from SmarterTeamTraining.com. I was just going around the HumanKinetic.com website looking for some stuff to read. I enjoy reading books and getting a chance to just open up one chapter at a time and just kind of scroll on through and just see what other people are writing about and just learn from others through their, taking them time to write stuff down. What has worked for them, putting it into a book. I think it's just awesome. It's something maybe I need to do in the future, or I'm trying to encourage other people to do as well. One book that I thought was kind of cool of recent that I got a chance to read from almost cover to cover was Fundamental Weight Training by David Sandler. I took a bunch of notes, and I just said, what the heck, man? I'll just look them up on online and shoot him an email. And it turned out that we were connected on Facebook and LinkedIn and some other scenarios, and it was actually very easy to get a hold of him. And so I just reached out and said, hey, I'd like to put you on the radio show, ask you some questions. We've done very little prep before this show, to be honest with you. I've never met David. David, I don't think, has ever met me in person. So it's also just really cool to have two professionals get on the phone and just genuinely talk shop. So, David, man, I really appreciate taking some time out of your day here just to contribute to the project here. And I'm looking forward to just learning from you, my man.
I am glad to be here. It's always great to connect with other professionals in the industry, and you've done a fabulous job as an ambassador of strength and conditioning and training in general, and reaching out to really help educate people. So this is great for me to join in with you.
Dave, before we get started, man, I say it all the time on this show. I mean, you can Google anybody, you can read up on anybody, but I really like asking people about their passion. I mean, how did you get started in this field from the passionate side? I mean, you have to have a lot of energy and enthusiasm to just keep on sticking to the grind that this field will just keep throwing at you. I mean, what is it in you that just drives your passion to be successful in this field?
Success of those that I help. I've been in this industry now just over 25 years, and it's been a long time, and I've never been out of this industry, and I've loved every minute of it, and that's because there's nothing more rewarding than seeing someone reach their goals, whether it's an athlete, a senior citizen, a child, a youth, anyone who puts a little bit of effort forth and sees their results. That's a huge ego boost from my side. And I got into the whole field of strength and conditioning originally because I was a extremely strong kid. So at 18 years of age, I'd never lifted a weight in my life. Was screwing around with my dad, and I had bench pressed. I think at that time we had only 300 pounds of weight available, and all that was on the bar. I weighed about 180 pounds. And it was pretty easy for me to just press that right out without ever having lifted a weight in my life. So my dad thought, that sounds like a lot of weight. Let's go check this out. And that was the start of it. And I wanted to learn why I was as strong as I was. And I went to school, went through different university programs, different degrees, got involved teaching, got involved as a strength and conditioning coach, and kind of continued to fuel that learning process, and then during that time, help others get better, faster, and so forth. And so it's really been a passion of learning about myself, and then learning about others and trying to help them. And like I said, 25 years later, I still love every day.
I haven't had many conversations with people in the physique prep, the body type, bodybuilding, the bikini contest, the fitness model kind of genre. I don't. Most of my stuff's more in that sports performance side, so it's always interesting to hear about people that are working in that area. But my one question, obviously, after reading the book here a little bit, was when designing training programs, how do you differentiate between a physique prep, strength, and sports performance? Is there an overlap? Is there similarities? Are there major differences that I'm not even seeing?
The book I wrote was more of a foundational kind of approach, so it was really sort of helping anyone begin to get in shape, begin to get stronger, begin to develop their body, and so forth. And so the book itself gives you a variety of different programs designed for anyone, and for strength and for physique and so forth, but it doesn't really go into separating those type of genres out. For me, I, of course, started in strength and conditioning and have spent more time over the last, say, decade doing more with physique prep and trying to help people get ready for whatever it was, whether it's a celebrity getting ready for a role, or a physique competitor getting on stage, or even an athlete who just wanted to look better. As you and I both know, they need to perform better on the field, but a lot of times they care about what they look like. So I started getting more involved in doing that kind of thing, and there is quite a difference. Overall, the process is the same. You're doing your sets, you're doing your reps, you set up a program, you go in with a plan, you periodize the program with a different approach, depending on what those specific goals are. But I guess the biggest difference is what that outcome is that you're looking for, and an outcome for performance is measured by your performance on the field, and that can be measured through strength improvements, speed improvements, power improvements, all the stuff that you're very familiar with, obviously. When it comes to physique and getting a look, well, it's a little different, right? Because there's a few other things that kind of tie into it, and obviously one of the major differences is making sure that you're able to see the muscles versus having the muscles perform for you. So unlike something that's strength or power or speed, where it's extremely measurable, how much you lift or how far you jump or how high you jump or how fast you run, it's very unmeasurable in the physique world because it's really opinion. Take a look in the mirror, see if you like it, but if you're up on stage, it's a criterion set by a bunch of judges that aren't always in agreement with what looks like the best physique or the best shape. And so for that, you have to dial in the diet a lot differently than an athlete dials in diets. As you're probably well aware and have prescribed, and worked with so many athletes before, you get them to eat healthy, making sure they're getting all the nutrients in, making sure they have enough energy. Typically an athlete is much more higher carbohydrate rich diet, so they have that energy to continually, hit the performance side of things. Whereas, you look in the physique side and you try to cut out the carbs as much as possible. Although I'm not a fan necessarily of that, that sort of seems to be the approach, and that's so you don't put on any extra body fat. So that the training is actually quite similar. Typically, you do a little bit higher reps and slow the repetitions down a little bit. The rest times are similar, but depends again on goal. So, there are phases where a physique competitor or athlete would like to, spend more time on strength or than, say, than increasing size, for example. So, but the process is basically the same. The biggest separation is the extra diet work that you do on the backside. That's where you really have to be careful on your calories and when you're taking them in.
I know you have a very broad range of things that you've accomplished and worked in and throughout the field and in your career, to be honest. And I want to bounce back and forth, if you don't mind. So I'm going to keep changing hats on you here quickly.
Yep.
The concept of the bench press scenario, and not even before we even start talking about how to bench press better or those types of things, I want to back up because a lot of times people don't discuss how to keep shoulder health up and really address the weak links of the shoulder girdle or even that whole entire complex before just putting a lot of weight on the bar. I mean, how do you protect the shoulders of a bench press competitor, a football player, or even a physique competitor?
Well, I look at those as three different complete people, and so it's funny to build a real big bench. You want to work your shoulders, but the most damaging thing you can do is overworking your shoulders, because in a bench press contest you have to touch your chest. You have to lock out. You have to have a full range of motion. So you can't shortchange it in any way. Otherwise, your lift just simply doesn't count. And so your shoulders become extremely vulnerable because they're in that position. And especially when you have to get in a position to really create that maximum amount of power, you do put your shoulders in a vulnerable spot. So typically what happens is your shoulder training should decrease considerably as a bench presser. You would train your shoulders on your push day, on your bench press day, really focusing more on the anterior delts and the medial delts, not worrying so much about the posterior delts, but also not worrying so much about sort of the finer delt movements. So you would do more of the, pure shoulder pressing and anterior delt work that you would get when you're training your chest itself. And so a lot less shoulder work. For the physique competitor, you got a lot more shoulder work because you need shape of your shoulders. So you're developing those, what they call the shoulder caps, right? So you need to do a lot more lateral raises, and in front deltoid raises, but also a lot more rear deltoid. So you build the cap out, and you'll definitely do the military, and shoulder presses, but you can shortchange the range of motion slightly. And of course, you're going to work through, many more different ranges of motion. But typically, you're using a much lighter weight, so you don't compromise the shoulder the way you would in say, a heavy-duty bench press. Now, for the athlete, and notice how I don't consider a bench presser or a physique competitor an athlete, although they might not like that. I always look at it. I always kind of say, weight room is weight room, and while you are an athlete, of course, you don't have a lot of the skill factors that you have in say other athletics. So back to the athlete then. Basically, what happens is that athlete has a lot more concern, right? Especially when the contact sport, where they get spun around, they fall and land with their outstretched arm. So for the athlete, you're looking more at protecting the shoulder from dislocation, protecting the shoulder through various range of motion. You obviously have a throwing motion, which is very hard on the shoulder, and or say a tennis player who's got a large range of motion and but it's a high velocity movement. So for the athletes, I tend to work on much more velocity type training at the shoulder through a large range of motion. Typically, I use a little bit lighter weight and really work that velocity thing and the flexibility across that joint, because I always try to prepare an athlete for what could possibly happen. And so, if I'm a lineman and I get beat by that defensive end coming around, and I've now stretched my arm out, I have to make sure that I can get that arm out in good position to be able to push off and so forth. And so I want to work those kind of range of motions that are more sports specific, but also work that velocity component. So much more ballistic approach to the shoulders. But there's no doubt, no matter how you cut it, the shoulders are vulnerable. I'm a fan of going through long range of motion. I think that short change in a range of motion because you're trying to protect the shoulder doesn't do you justice when you get into an athletic event where your shoulder can be compromised. I think for those who don't have to worry about a compromised shoulder, non-contact sports or in sports where their arms don't have to get over their heads or whatever, that might be a different deal. But for most other athletes, high velocity, explosive type training, full range of motion, and also taking your time. It's got to be part of every workout. So shoulder workout for the athlete comes maybe twice a week or, and not necessarily just on bench press day for, like the bench presser.
Speaking generally when it relates to nutrition, I really don't like the word recovery. So I like to use the word refuel. And I think you have a better comprehensive approach. It's a different mindset when you start talking about refueling the body. And some people can argue whether that starts before, the day before, the morning of, during the workout, or even after. But, would you have any recommendations for that recovery or refueling aspect of a program, a comprehensive program that relates to nutrition, hydration, and even potentially sleep as it relates to just preparing the body for, to withstand the rigors of training?
Well, I think you have different scenarios. I think for the competitor who's in a weight room, either a physique competitor, bodybuilder, or say a power lifter specifically, or Olympic lifter, or something like that, your times of working out are well known. So you're going to go hit your workout. But the rest of the stuff you do all day is typically non-confrontational against your workouts, right? Whereas a sport athlete has their weight room workouts, has their explosive speed, agility type of training workouts. They have their practice. They have their skills. If if they throw a ball, a baseball player, quarterback, whatever, then you've got the throwing. You have all those different components that are in with a sport athlete versus the person who just weight trains for their sport. And so I think there's two different approaches. I think they're both the same in the sense that no matter what, whenever you work out, you need to have fuel. And I like your idea of saying refueling, because if your body is not fueled, you simply don't rebuild and you don't repair and you're not ready for that next workout. That next workout comes either in that program sequence time frame, which, in the weight room, or it comes, in the sense that when I was a strength and conditioning coach, we did our weight workouts and then you're out there on the field practicing. And that's another workout, albeit different. It's another workout, and you need to be fueled for both of those. And then I think to hit your point home, I think a lot of people don't realize that recovery is refueling, because if you don't have fuel, you can't recover. So recovering is not just about having I think we talk about, say, adding protein to your diet so that you have enough protein for the muscles to rebuild. And I think that's an extremely important thing, to make sure there's a constant supply of protein for the body all day long. But without the hydration, as you mentioned, and without the carbohydrates and other important fuels, the processes don't all work together. And so just having a ton of protein in your body is sort of a hit or miss, in my opinion. Whereas if you have some carbohydrates to fuel that process, then the protein gets utilized better. And like you mentioned, if you're not sleeping properly, if you're not eating for the rest of your day properly, all those things become a problem. So the strategy is to make sure your body never is without some fuel. And so long time fasts are not good in my book. Constant fueling all day long, every 2 hours or so. It doesn't have to be huge, but also that has protein, fats, and carbohydrates in every fueling. So whether that's an energy bar or some kind of thing like that, a sports bar, or a nice decent meal, or just even a smaller portion size of a meal, that becomes extremely important, because your body continually needs carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Not just protein, not just, it needs everything all the time. I think it's very important to fuel before you go into a workout, because of not just for the workout itself, but post-workout as well. And I think that fueling means staying hydrated. So like you're suggesting, you should be hydrated all day long, not trying to recover by drinking a bunch of water, or liquid after your workout kind of thing. You should have, liquid going in the beginning, throughout, and then after. And then same with the fuels. And, you can get into specifics and what kind of things, what kinds of proteins, amino acids, or other kinds of supplements that might be helpful for it. But the bottom line is, without regular fuel all day long, you're not helping yourself. The body is constantly in a state of turnover. It's constantly rebuilding itself from various damage that happens all day long, not just from your training. And so I think that fueling is important all day long, and that's the same for every athlete, whether you're a physique competitor or a football player.
As soon as people realize you're a strength and conditioning coach by profession, there's almost not a day that goes by that someone doesn't ask you about how they can improve their bench press. Whether it's somebody at the gas station, there's somebody you're training with, an athlete that you see every single day. It could be just anybody, to be honest with you. It could be friends coming over to the house. I mean, what advice would you have for players, specifically, let's say, high school football players looking to increase their bench? I mean, what are some ways that they could increase their bench numbers, or just get their bench numbers up?
It's funny because that you say that, because that couldn't be more true. Just the other day, I was walking and wearing a tight T-shirt, and out of nowhere, a guy just says, "How much you bench?" Just like that, like just walking past me. And I was with my son, and we were just kind of going for a walk. And I probably look like that prototypical bench presser. I've got a big, thick chest. I'm pretty short. Only being 5'6". I'm pretty stout, so I look probably like a bench presser. But it's so true. And to me, I mean, it's like just so foreign now, because it's been so long since I've done the bench pressing. But I guess the advice simply is this: it's strength is something that takes a considerable amount of time. And even if you're genetically blessed for strength like I was, you still have to put in a tremendous amount of time. And that's one thing you can never take away. Don't try to rush too quick. There are a lot of cool techniques and ideas and ways to train, but the bottom line is it's got to be consistent, and you've got to take your time. Most guys fail at trying to build their bench because they try to lift too much too quick. So they're flopping around the bench, or they're doing what I call the CPR bench press, or their body's all over the place, their form's not good. You need to build a base with exceptional form. That lays down good foundational muscle and builds in a good structure so that you're nice and compact and tight on the bench to allow yourself to bench press. Then the next part, of course, is to, take your time, hit a good strength workout. Realize that if you're trying to increase your bench, that's different than increasing your chest size. And while the two do come together, without a doubt, we know from the data that your cross-sectional area of muscle and strength parallel one another for a portion of the time. They do begin to separate. The bodybuilders, the biggest bodybuilders in the world, typically aren't the biggest bench pressers, and the biggest bench pressers typically don't have the most phenomenal looking body. And that's because there is that separation after a while. And so for building that strength, it's a very big neurological process. The body has to continually recruit more fibers, muscle fibers to do the work. It has to continue to bang out those tough, grinding out repetitions. Much longer rest period. You typically don't come out of a powerlifting workout sweating your tail off. I mean, you will if it's hot, but you're not looking for that fast pace. You're not doing, reps every, with 60 or 90 seconds rest. You're taking 3 or 4 minutes rest, and that's to build back up, a full supply of ATP, of energy, also to get the neurological pathways back so that the neurons can fire much better and more consistently. And so that whole process is a little different. You have to be in the mindset of building strength and not building chest size. If you're looking for both, you're going to get both, but you have to make that decision. I think the biggest thing I tell most guys that are looking for that big bench is just relax for a sec here and think about if you truly want a big bench or you just want a big chest. And if you want both, there's a couple ways you can do it, but if you want a big bench, you have to not worry about what your chest looks like as much as what your bench press form looks like, and making sure that you really lift hard, lift strong, and take that rest in between the sets.
The majority of my experience in the field has been either at the international level, the pro level, a long time at the college level, and now I'm getting a chance to become a little more available to the private sector. And that goes from very young athletes through the high school, the junior high scenario, and even kids coming back from college, and even the pros in the off-season, et cetera. I mean, now we're starting to see a very big not only chronological age, but also a very broad range in training age. So when you're designing programs, I mean, when training age and that chronological age differ, how do you progress or regress your program? I mean, are there any special considerations for somebody who might be a little older age-wise that you have built into your program or your system? And again, what kind of age do you start training at? And did you start with speed stuff or strength stuff? I mean, there's so many questions about this age-related topic to our field. I mean, how do you see that really being done safely?
Yeah, that's, I bet you if we put 20 or 30 of us in a room, we'd come up with 20 or 30 different answers. I'll give you my take, and it's just one of many takes, I'm sure. At my age now, I've been in this game for a heck of a long time. Life gets in the way, and so everything from your job, your family, issues, whatever, health, and so forth. And so I typically try not to put age on the docket at all. I just simply say, where is your training level and what is your goal? And how do we get there the safest, most effective way? And the closer you are, of course, to your goal, the harder we can train and so forth. But if I take someone who has not worked out in ever, or not work out in a very long time, it doesn't really matter how old they are. They're a beginner as far as I'm concerned. And so they need to just learn basic reps and sets, how to control weight, nothing too fancy and so forth. Whereas if I get someone who has had more experience, then I could move them into something that's a little more, little more heavy duty for them. And then as far as the what it is that we're doing, well, it is really goal specific. So again, if we go back to that physique competitor, you're talking about a body shape. But if I go to an athlete, or one of the things I did a very large study when I was doing my doctoral work in Miami, at the University of Miami. We worked with seniors, a lot of them. I had over 550 seniors in my training program. And yes, that's not 550. And the average age of those seniors was like 81 years old. So these are late model seniors, not young seniors. And what we did with them is train them explosively, just like we train an athlete. The exact same types of training protocols, but completely geared towards their functional fitness level. And we did that because we were mostly concerned with increasing that neurological firing pattern, or the power development. Because one of the big things we noticed with seniors is that their power drop-off was so great that they began to fall. Not they fell and broke their hip, but they had, they didn't have power to prevent themselves from falling. And when you and I trip, we stick our foot out in front of us. Well, if you can't dorsiflex and hip flex fast enough, you're going to fall. So we worked on that kind of explosive training, and it had nothing to, and when we first were asked about it, it's like, you're going to do explosive training with a senior? And it's like, yep. But realize this, the what explosive means for someone who's 80 versus for someone who's 30. And so I think for me, it's really, and this is where you become a student of training, and you're a student for life, in my opinion. I mean, I'm still learning what's the best way to go. We do an analysis, understand what the person is, what the person possesses, and build the program from that. And we try to assess where they stand, what their capabilities are, and then build the program on that. So for me, I don't do a whole lot of this chronological type of thing. I'm actually in about the best looking shape of my life now because of what I do and because of my industry and because of helping other people try to look good. But quite frankly, I'm not anywhere near as strong, nowhere near as athletic or as powerful, nowhere near the power and speed that I used to have when I was younger, training more like a sport athlete. So it's all kind of relative, right? It's I take a look at the individual person. I say never let age be a deterring factor, but never try to progress yourself faster than you really can. Understand where you are, seek an advice of a professional that can really give you a hand when you're going into a new area, and try to understand where you are so that you could build an effective program moving forward. And I'm not sure that answers the question, but that is, like I said, that's my take. And I guess if we sat there and tried to look at how we set up a program, I've always said this, and the wonderful thing I love about the strength and conditioning industry, and especially guys like you, Rob, is guys that are out there really trying to share knowledge with one another. Is you could put 20 strength coaches in a room on the same exact program or same exact sport, and you would come out with 20 different training programs, and every one of them would be effective. That's the wonderful thing about our industry, and that's but that also leaves a lot of questions for the newbies coming in.
I know you've had an opportunity to make a big-time impact on the field. You've got an opportunity to work as a strength conditioning coach. You've done the scientist route and done the research scenario. You're obviously involved in nutrition. I mean, if someone gets a chance to sit down and have a talk with you, I mean, what's one big motivational or inspirational type message that you hope that they take from you?
I think the biggest thing I really want people to know, and I think the impact I would like to leave on people is that you need to be a sponge, and that you need to continue to learn from everyone. I have not stopped learning in 25 years, and I don't intend to stop learning ever in this field. The other big thing is that, why are you doing this? If you're doing it for others, you will really get something out of it. Like I said, I think a lot of us in the industry have, in strength and conditioning and in fitness in general, have egos. It's just part of the industry. My ego is seeing somebody improve. And if you can ground yourself in that and really truly care about helping others, you're going to one, be very successful, but two, you're going to learn so much more. And there's several people out there. Rob, you're one of them for sure. You care about others. That's why you do this show and other things, to really truly help people. I think that's where everything is. So for me, my big take home message, the big thing I want everybody to understand is that, I'm in this sport and I've done this stuff because I care about helping somebody else, and I never stop learning. Always look for a better solution, but always realize that the end result is helping somebody achieve what they didn't think they could possibly do before. So whether it's a body transformation, increased strength, or improvement in sport, or just living a more healthy life when they're at 90 years of age, no matter how you cut it, it's helping that person do something they never thought they could do before. And that's where the big excitement and enthusiasm for the industry comes.
Again, I got a chance to go on to humankinetics.com and look up the book Fundamental Weight Training. I read the book basically cover to cover. David, I really appreciate you obviously taking some of your thoughts and knowledge and experiences and sharing them in that book as well. But not only that, but just firing back on emails and getting a chance to just talk to you has been awesome. I look forward to just keeping in touch as a whole. But is there an easier way for people to connect with you, to reach out to you as a mentor, or maybe even just ask questions about what you have going on, man? Is there a way for people to connect with you?
Always, yep. You can follow me at Sandler Strength, so my last name, Sandler Strength, or pick up me on email at david@strengthpro.com, strengthpro.com. Facebook, friend me. Google, take a look. I typically will answer just about everything that comes in, and unless it's an ad, or unless you just want a whole ton of money from me. But otherwise, when it comes to helping, I always try to, this is what I've done. This has been my life, trying to help people, and I love seeing somebody succeed because they took a little bit of extra time and wanted to learn. So yeah, at Sandler Strength or david@strengthpro.com, and follow me, hang with me, and let's have some fun.
Again, anybody that's listening to the show, do me a favor, go to humankinetics.com, pick up the Fundamental Weight Training book that David was an author of, and just identify some questions that you might have so you can reach out to him and expect responses that lead to better questions. They may or may not be answers. As we even said here in the radio show a couple times, and you put 20 people in a room, you might get 20 programs. So just be open to that conversation and that discussion about what has worked for others and what do they know now that they wish they knew then. Again, David, man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I really applaud your contribution here to the project. It's always fun to give back to others and hear their reactions, and it's also obviously an outstanding honor of mine to have a man of your caliber to be on the show here and get a chance to talk to and now call a friend, my man. So thank you very much for taking some time of your day, and I look forward to this being a launching pad for us to do many things down the road here, my man.
You betcha. It's an absolute pleasure also as well, working with an expert like yourself and really just getting a chance to get to know you better. It's a great pleasure of mine as well. So thank you muchly for having me on the program, and I'm always available anytime to bounce some crazy ideas off of one another.